my understanding of love, that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. You know, that it is an action, it is a principle. And Jesus also says in John 15, you know, no greater love has any man than this, than to lay down his life for his friend or for another. So the principle of love is to do, to put others first. I think that's something that we, myself included, you know, we have selfishness in the actions that we do towards even those that we claim that we love. Our families, you know, oh, I'll do this because I know I'll get this, you know, potential boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, same thing, you know. But when we have the true understanding of what it means to give self to somebody else, just as Christ gave himself for us, I think it really puts things into perspective. To realize that I'm not living for myself. First, I'm living for God, of course, because he loved me first. And then when I treat others, my future mate, my friends just around me, like I'm going to give myself to that individual. I will esteem them higher than myself, as Paul says in Philippians. Yeah, so for me, I'm still learning, you know, by his grace, as far as like how to be selfless in the actions and the things that I do for other people.
Well, I know for me, as someone who grew up outside the church, my idea of what love is has changed dramatically. And as I've come to know God, I came to see that all the ideas that I had about love were twisted and perverted by the enemy. And as I came to see the beauty of God's pure love, it drew me to want to know that better. And I gained such a better understanding of why things are the way they are. The angels in heaven had perfect communion with God, but there was something missing that they didn't understand. What it was like to be a creator God caring for his creation. And so when he created male and female, he was doing something very deliberate in trying to reveal himself to the world. That close intimacy between a husband and a wife was designed for us to understand just how close a relationship God wants to have with us. He doesn't want to be this high God who's so far away and so above us that we can't know him. But he wants that intimacy where there's nothing between you and you care so much about each other. You want to care and protect for each other. And then he shared with us his creative ability in having children. There were so many lessons to learn. How much we love our children, and how much we worry about them, and why we make rules for them, and all these beautiful truths that God revealed in the way he created us. And the world looks at all those things and they just think they're an accident of history. And it's so sad because they're being robbed of the beauty of knowing that true love that God desires for us to have.
God-driven. Love is patient, and I think we lack patience. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that as young people find ourselves in, and that we think, is this person right here, right now? You know, do a quick prayer, but we already made the decision in our minds to move forward. So just being patient and allowing God to reveal who the person, who the right person is, the ideal person for you. Nutshell.
I think you even touched on it earlier on. You had asked what the difference was between people like in the world and people in church, and like how they view love and how they go about choosing their mates and stuff. And I think that's just one of the principles. Sometimes, mostly, if you're Christian, like typical biblical, you'd ask God first, right, for direction, like, where is it? You don't pick. I know these days some people would pick, you gotta go bang, that has to be the one, you know?
Yeah.
And then you start praying, oh Lord, my God, please, that man, yes. You know, which doesn't really quite make sense, but you have to let God first lead, and I think that's like the church construct, right? It becomes a triangle where Jesus is the head, and then you have the two coming together through him, and even when they come up with a home, you know, Jesus Christ remains the head, and you have the two complementing each other by the grace of God. Whereas if it's, you know, in the world, like outside the church, people would probably just get off, and it's like whoever I feel comfortable with, whoever I feel like, oh, is attractive enough or good enough to be with me, them I will be with. It's good.
No, for me, I always think of it as the only way that nothing will come between you and your spouse is if Jesus is between you. Otherwise, a man or an angel will come between you, one way or another. But if you both always put Jesus between you, then nothing else can come between you. So when I think about meeting and being with someone, my prayer is always that we both might reach out our hands in faith to grasp God's hand, and that it's God who puts us together. And I think that's the only way in this world of sin it will ever actually work. Or strife and contention and problems will all follow if Jesus isn't always the center.
Well, the sense of community, you know, definitely first God-driven. Then if you have godly parents or godly family, or seeking godly counsel, I think that's something I've seen as well, that we kind of, you know, try not to seek it. Kind of usually because we know what we're doing is already wrong. The person's probably not right. So we're like, oh, we're praying about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's between Jesus and us, yes, we're praying, you know? But like truly seeking the help and the counsel of godly older people, you know, the older saints in our churches, in our homes, and truly opening our hearts to what they have to say, and of course always ultimately bringing it back to God. But I mean, our parents love us. We would pray that they would choose, you know, or help us make the right decisions, ideally. So I think that's an encouragement for all of us young people to actually seek godly counsel with a willing spirit and a teachable spirit, because we see that throughout the Bible, that example of, you know, either like Abraham sending somebody for Isaac, or God himself bringing Eve to Adam, and other places as well.
I think sometimes these things that we say are sort of like easy to follow for people who are like so embedded, like, you know, okay, I'm Christian, the Bible is it, God is it, whatever he says I'll do. But I think as time goes by, like from what I've heard from friends, things are changing. Even in the church, it seems like things are changing. So instead of somebody trying to look for somebody even within the church who is Christian, because everybody seems to be the same, like there's no difference between the world and the church anymore. You both behave the same, no huge difference. People just go off and pick whoever. And in doing that, I mean, somebody might be nice, you know, they might not really be Christian, but they'll be good. I mean, they'll be very hospitable, loving, kind, and whatnot, you know, like everything is there. But they might not know the God that you know. But that's usually just put outside box, and it's like, oh, like I'll just go alone and just be with this person, because apparently they're even better off than some other people who are in church, you know. That's what people say. So that's a huge concern. And when it comes to that, people just literally go off and they think that's where things are sort of like gonna miss, and we start looking more alike with the world. We're almost like at the same level, on the same ground, and behave literally the same. So if the church is kind enough, I mean, if we can all just like encourage each other, direct each other into the right path that God would rather have us trade, I think that would be better off. And also rebuking and talking to each other will be something good. I feel like sometimes we don't approach each other. You see your sister is not doing something that's right, or your brother is doing something that might not really benefit them that much, but you don't speak out. Sometimes it could be, I don't know, I'm just doing things because that's how I think they should. Yeah, like that's what I've known always. I've never known the truth. But you won't come and tell me like, oh, hey, this is not actually how it works. Don't just go and run off after everybody, So if we can talk to each other, as he said, seek counsel, help each other out, like one-on-one, able to talk about these things openly. Have the adults, probably people who are very experienced with being through these things, talk to the youths. That might really, really be helpful. I know media plays a huge role these days. People also, just look to media and see whatever they see online, they emulate, put it into practice in their lives. So if we have people who actually have trod those paths and have actually lived a reality of it, they might actually be better advisors and they might be better people to emulate. So if we can channel, like our energies into bringing that back home and transforming people that way, by the grace of God, obviously, yeah.
The first verse that came to my mind was Jesus speaking to Peter, and he says, when you're converted, feed my lambs. And until there are truly converted people providing, grounded, sound, biblical examples of what it is like to live as a true committed Christian serving God, then the ideas of the youth are going to be all confused. And as Sister White wrote, by beholding you are changed. And the children behold the behavior of the adults, which all too often falls short of the glory of God. And they see a disharmony between what is being spoken and what is being practiced. And I personally believe that lies at the root of all of the problems in our youth, not just in relationships. And it's just so clear when you see parents who truly are committing their all to serving God. It's reflected in how their children behave and how their children think, and it's just patently obvious. It's just the most beautiful testimony that you can have of what it is like to have that living relationship with God and the indwelling of the Spirit. And sadly, there's all too much worldliness in the church, and that gets reflected by the children. I see some of my favorite evangelists, and they go out and they bring their whole family with them. And some of the kids are very young, but they're so unbelievably well behaved, and the parent doesn't have to sit over them the whole time, tell them to do this and do that. They've learned it, and they've had that behavior modeled for them, and it's just amazing to see what God can do even through very, very young children when they've learned the right way. All too often we've gone astray.
But we have to think about those who don't have a Christian home. So the role of the church, when they go every Sabbath to name your church SDA Church, right? That sometimes they're coming from broken homes. And so I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, that you've said, but just really taking time to invest in these individuals. Sometimes we know, that, sometimes it's just blatant, both my parents aren't Christians, I just come to church with my friend or whatever the case may be. To really invest in those individuals that the Lord will lead us to as we pray. And for us adults is to be honest. I think that's something that the youth really appreciate. I know that's what I appreciate. Who doesn't like honesty? It may hurt sometimes, but honesty is the best policy. So being honest with ourselves that we have made mistakes, that we have sinned, that we have done stuff that the youth are doing today, whatever it may be. Anyway, it doesn't have to be in a controlled setting or anything like that, but in the sense of just being real with young people, saying, look, I had that same struggle, and this is how I overcame by the grace of Christ. You don't have to go through this, right? Just like the Old Testament was written for our example, the New Testament as well. I mean, we are to testify of what God has done for us. And I think that would really help our young people not go the same path if they see that we're honest. Like, yeah, it's a sin common to man. But by God's grace, when I surrendered to Him, you know, He changed my heart, changed my desires. And He can do the same for you. And I'm there to help you through your struggle.